Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Trail Talk Highpointing podcast. I'm your host, Lauren, and our highpointer that we're speaking with today is Tom Shea. Tom, how's it going?
It's going great. How you doing, Lauren?
Good. It's always great to have you back. Listeners know Tom from the episode 1 and many other episodes following that. And also he's one of the editors of our favorite Apex to Zenith magazine, which
Yes.
we'll talk about today along with the convention. So Tom, let's start it off by talking about the convention.
Yeah. Great convention in Bishop, California, and little bit of tease for the upcoming Apex to Zenith, which should be hitting people's mailboxes this week or early next, because we have a lot of convention highlights and photos, and it was really, really an exciting sort of well done. I've got to give kudos to Dave Covell, Tim Webb, Dennis Dean, who were the hosts of the convention. And as you can imagine, it's a big undertaking. There's a lot of logistics, and I think they did an awesome job. Typically, as people would know, the convention is where we sort of tee up one of the high points to climb, and this was a unique one because Mount Whitney is the California high point, but is not right there in Bishop and requires winning the lottery in order to gain access to it. Wheeler Peak is a little bit more accessible. And so we did have a number of high pointers who were either able to win the lottery or gain access to climb Whitney. And so we'll provide some updates in Apex to Zenith about some of those summits and successes, more so with Wheeler Peak. And so we had a number of people who were able to climb and have a lot of good photos and a lot of good stories around that. So it was a fun convention to go around.
That's great. And when I heard years ago that the convention was going to be in California, I immediately thought, oh, that's going to be so difficult. How's everyone going to climb Whitney and how are they going to do this? And it really seems like it worked out smoothly between either going to Wheeler Peak or winning the lottery or just being in beautiful Eastern Sierra Nevada region of California.
Yeah.
What did you think of Lone Pine and Bishop and Alabama Hills, by the way? My shirt, Alabama Hills.
There you go. That's right. I always
Such a beautiful place, isn't it?
Our first issue of Apex to Zenith.
That's right.
Our cover star. I absolutely loved it. Tommy and I are about halfway through our high pointing journey, but this, other than South Dakota, this was really kind of our first West Coast 14,000 footer adventure. And I'll tease it a little bit. I think we'll have a follow-on conversation. We had quite an adventure on Mount Whitney, but there were a couple of other players involved in that. So we wanted to make sure that we get them involved.
Well, I'm really excited about hearing that.
Yeah, it had it all. It had, because I'll give it just a little bit of a tease. Matt Balthazar, who was our fearless leader, was the one who won the lottery, but he won the one-day lottery as opposed to multiple days. So a lot of interesting stuff in terms of preparation and the actual climb itself. So we'll get into that. But I thought Lone Pine was awesome. Bishop was such a great little town.
Isn't it?
Best sourdough bread I've ever had in my life. It's almost worth it just going for that. The watermelon feast was great. The weather was absolutely perfect. Could not have asked for better weather. And there was just a real energy around it, which was, you kind of hope for that. I was going to say you expect it. You expect it, but you really hope for that. But people seemed really excited to be there. Lucy Westlake, who we highlighted a number of times in Apex to Zenith, was our keynote speaker. And she did a really great job. When we dive in and talk a little bit about this upcoming Apex to Zenith, I want to highlight, I think, some of her observations that came out of, her being there in person and being involved, which I think were pretty insightful. So all in all, it was a great experience.
That's wonderful. And when you mention how great of a town Bishop is. It reminded me of when I climbed Whitney the first time. My guide lived in Bishop, and he was so excited about the airport either opening up or being expanded or something like that. There's like more flights now that can go into Bishop, and there's more direct flights and stuff like that. And this has nothing to do with the airport, but my husband and I did take a drive from Lone Pine to Yosemite on Highway 395. And that is one of the most beautiful highways in America, I think, 395.
Yeah, it is. And we ended up flying through Vegas
Okay.
because of, the logistics coming in from the East Coast. And ended up, that drive was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
I remember, I forget what the name of it is, but we went by a spot where they actually filmed some of the Top Gun scenes because they had, like jets that it was like a really cool little canyon, and they had jets that were able to fly through there from the naval bases that are out in that area. And it was really, really cool.
That's cool. I went to Death Valley when I was in Lone Pine the first time, Death Valley National Park. And people were saying that that's where some scenes from Star Wars were filmed, maybe around the sand dunes or something like that. I can't confirm it. I'll look into it later. But either way, when you drive through that region of the country and that part of California and Nevada, you can see why anyone would choose that place to do any kind of film or just even to live there. It's so, so beautiful.
It's, Joshua Tree. I could see all kinds of extraterrestrial kind of whatever kind of setting you want from a filming perspective. Joshua Tree would be perfect for.
That's true. That's true. I went camping there one winter, and the camping permit was for the Indian Cove campground. So there's no actual Joshua trees in Indian Cove, but there's those big jumbo rocks, and it was a full moon when I was camping, and so I would get up in the middle of the night and I walked to the bathroom, and it was just when the full moon shines on those rocks, it really feels like you're on another planet. Yeah. I obviously don't know what that's like to be on another planet, but it's what I would imagine.
That's what it would be like. Well, the thing is, because there's really no pollution, right? The sky is just that unbelievably perfect sort of dark black with the stars, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Those, that's another list. Now that you said, no light pollution, that's another list that I think I would imagine a lot of high pointers have, maybe once they're done with the high points or as they're doing high points, we always like to visit the national parks or like state capitals or whatever, is to visit all of the designated dark sky regions of the country. Because there are some. I know Big Bend National Park is one, Great Basin National Park is another. And I'm sure the listeners are going to tell me how many I missed.
Yeah, I went, my daughter lived in San Diego, and when she drove cross country, she moved back to Brooklyn, and her dog Bowie, I went out and helped them drive back. And while we were in Montana, we went out one night just to see the stars because it was amazing how beautiful they were. But you know what we have to do now? You just made me think of it. With all these Northern Light sightings.
Oh, I know. I keep missing them.
So you posted something which I loved, which I used. It's like everybody in the world has seen the Northern Lights once again, except me.
I keep going to bed early, and then I go to bed at like 8:30, and I wake up at 4. Yeah. And when I open up my phone, everyone's like, I saw the Northern Lights. And it's all my friends from all over the country who saw the Northern Lights. No one is excluded. Like even people in South Carolina saw the same Northern Lights that someone in Montana saw. And I'm like, why did I sleep through that?
No, I'll tell you. And I don't know. I think some of it, I live in central New Jersey and woke up to see there's an old mill near us, which is like famous in Clinton, New Jersey. And people have these pictures of the Northern Lights behind the old mill. I'm like, that can't be real. Like, when did you find that? How were you in that spot at that time? Because it couldn't have been more than just a few minutes, right? But these pictures are stunning.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. No, it's...
And now I question whether everything's AI or not. Is that
Right,
real?
all these
Is that
pictures that you're
really
seeing.
happening? Or is that somebody
I think the
working?
whole world's in on it, the whole country's in on it.
Exactly.
So we're about to get the upcoming issue of A to Z in the mailbox. Am I right?
You are absolutely right. Yeah, and
And what can we expect in there?
it's a chock. I mean, this was one, and we can. I'll do a little bit of a public service request for you know people to continue to send content and pictures because that's what really makes it. Um, the better issues are the ones where we get more content to work through. This one, because it was post convention, and just I don't know, high pointers are out there. There was a lot of really good information and a lot of really cool pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're going to see is definitely sort of a big pictorial overview of the convention.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of good footage of either people's climbs or the towns themselves or just individuals. There were a number of awards that were presented to people. And so there's a complete rundown of who won which award and some pictures of people who we recognized for either being part of the High Pointer Club and, going above and beyond, or a
Mm-hmm.
number of people who are not part of the High Pointer Club, but did things that really were helpful, whether it be, maintaining certain high points or other activities that are helpful to the High Pointer community.
Yeah.
So I won't, I won't ruin the surprise with that, but you'll sort of get a big overview of who those people were. We recently launched a new, improved, updated website, which if people have not had an opportunity to check out, I highly encourage you to check out. Many thanks to Catherine Bertine and to Justin Sutton and to Ashraf Hossein, who were really kind of the key drivers behind that. And it was long overdue, still a work in progress. We're going to continue to enhance and update, but I think just right off the bat, going in the first time, you're going to be like, wow, this looks very different than it
That's
did.
great. And we'll put a link to the updated website in the show notes.
Yeah, awesome. And look, as with everything, certainly with Apex to Zenith, but with the website, we're wide open to suggestions. We're definitely wide open to people who want to volunteer to support any of the activities. But, especially now, we're in the process of enhancing and upgrading. So any ideas people have or things that they think would be useful to them as high pointers, let us know because we're in the process of building that out.
That's great. And how can they let the High Pointers Club know of any ideas that they have?
I will give you the right email. Justin is probably the best person to send them to now.
Mm-hmm.
So Justin Sutton is our membership lead and has been very directly connected with the website. He's in sort of transition now with Ashraf. But what I'll do is I'll give you his contact information. We can put that in the show notes as well.
I know another thing that's announced at conventions is where the convention will be 2 years from now. So we know that next year's convention is at West Virginia. So can you tell listeners what the location will be for the High Pointers Convention 2027?
I can, and I can also give you a little bit of that. That's always a really fun part of the convention when that, because basically what people can do is it moves to the different quadrants of the country in terms of the location. So the upcoming one is in West Virginia, and a lot of great planning for that. You can actually go on the website now and sign up for the West Virginia Convention, and all of the information is included there. For the next one, the way that it works is people are asked to nominate different states that they feel the convention should be at. And this year we had 3 nominations. We had Alabama. We had, because it's the southern region, is where it's sort of teed up for next time.
Southeast.
We had Kentucky. Okay. And that was really interesting. Rodney Westlake, who is Lucy's dad, at the convention, which was awesome to have him there. And that was one of their very first high points.
That's right. I remember mentioning that on the show.
Yeah, so he and that sort of had a special place in their heart. So he nominated Kentucky, but then out of the blue, we got a late nomination for Florida, which people were like, Florida, because as people may or may not know, Florida is the lowest of the high points out there. But because, and I loved sort of the lead into this, which was because California is the highest of the high points, other than Denali, in the 48 contiguous states. The thinking was that people needed a break and needed a rest and needed to sit on some sand for a little while and not worry about having to climb mountains. So Florida got nominated and got a lot of momentum and is the winner. So
that's great.
We're going to be going to Florida in 2027.
That's fantastic. I'm looking forward to that. And you could not have picked a more accessible high point. There's no lottery. There's no training.
Bring a picnic basket and sit in a beautiful little park, and then you'll be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
And the surrounding area is nice. And yeah, it'll be an interesting, but I think a really fun, different kind of convention.
I agree. Yeah. Not a lot of, I don't want to say not a lot of high pointing. It'll just be like, different in terms of focus as opposed to this year. Yeah.
Storytelling.
Yeah, focus on camaraderie.
Yeah, exactly. So what are some of the other things? A lot of member updates. So people have been busy. People have been out there. People have been, doing their thing. So, we highlighted a lot of that. Paty Matascala has, so she's one of our recent board members and had an idea which I thought was awesome. And so we've been highlighting, it's called High Point History. And it's the story and a lot of like the naming convention behind the different high points. And, when you think about it, you just sort of take for granted that that's what the name of the high point is. But when you dig a little bit deeper into it, you start to find that there's just some fascinating backstories to why was it named that? How did they come up with that? So for this issue, it's Tim's Hill.
Okay.
The High Point story.
Okay.
And it's interesting because, I won't give it away, but when you think of the convention of, who does it own? Who owns the High Point? Does somebody own the High Point? When it's named after an individual, right? You sort of run into this question as to who's Tim and why is this his hill? And so this issue tells that story and explains kind of the background to it.
And she's the perfect person to do that article. She's one of my favorite High Point history scholars.
Yeah. So who else do you? I know you have a few go-to folks for when you need to dig deep into.
Well, we actually did an episode. In fact, it was Mihai Georgiulescu's idea to do an episode about High Point names. And so we, of course, said we have to have Paty on. And then we also had Sky Marthaler, who is he has a YouTube channel, Rooftops of America. And so I really did the least amount of talking in the group. And I let them have it. And these are like three of our community's scholars when it comes to history. And, Mihai is a geographer.
I loved the podcast with Mihai and listened to it. And then I had a chance to meet Mihai because he lives in Bishop.
He does, yeah.
So he was like, this convention was made for him. It was the perfect spot. And he was great. He was, very involved and engaged in it. And so, yeah, he's a good guy. I think he actually, and Mihai, if you're listening, he just made an East Coast trip and knocked out a bunch of East Coast high points. So
Okay, I'll have to have him back
hopefully
on to.
send some of your pictures and send some of your updates because we want to
Yeah.
highlight them in the next Apex to Zenith.
Oh, great. Yeah. We'll make sure he does that. And also, he is just an avid peak bagger. He loves peak bagging, including state high points. He loves county high points. And like, I've noticed that if you just mention a random peak to him, he will know. If he hasn't been on it, he'll know everything about it, and it's on his list. And he has a profile on like peakbagger.com or something like. I'll put the link to the website in there, and you can see all of the peak bagging he's done. And he's like international peak
Prolific.
bagger.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
amazing. You know,
yeah,
but I'll tell you, it's folks like that I think we've got kind of these hidden gems of people within the High Pointers Club that, first of all, congratulations and great job to you highlighting them on the podcast. Because I know that's where I've learned about a lot of, just people who are passionate about certain things or have experience in certain areas. So, the more that we're able to just sort of bring those people to light so that
yeah.
we can understand, like I know you had John Mitchler on.
Oh
And
yeah, he's an encyclopedia.
I mean, like every single element of every single high point forever, right?
Paty Maniscalco has a great blog. It's outdoorpilgrim.com. I'll put a link to it. And before you go to a high point or do a trail, she's done a lot of trails. She's done the Arizona Trail. I think she's done the Appalachian Trail, probably the Pacific Crest Trail. If I'm wrong, but she's done a lot of them. I know she's done the Oregon Coast Trail, which I didn't know about. And that's where I learned that Oregon is like one of the only states where all of the coast is public land. But anyway, before you do any high point or any big trail, just check out her blog. There's a good chance that she's done it and that she's written about it. And her writing, as we know from A to Z, it's very thorough, it's very researched, and a lot of your questions can be answered there. Like you said, we have a wealth of knowledge within our community, and it's something that I highlight in the shows all the time. It's like we are normal people who just have this one hobby, but these normal people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Generally.
I should say like everyday people, I guess.
Yeah.
But these people, they have very unique specialties that it comes natural to them to combine it with their high pointing hobby. So like Mihai is into geography. Same with John Mitchler, and Sky Marthaler is an historian, and Paty, same. They're all researchers in their own fields, and they all happen to love high pointing, and they naturally just bring that into our endeavor. So I think there's so much knowledge that we can all tap into. We're very lucky to have these people and to have A to Z to where they are regular contributors.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And look, the more we both know, I think, Lauren, that there's a lot more out there. And so the more that we're able to, through this medium and through the magazine and through the conventions and so forth, get people to recognize it. Just raise your hand. Like we really want to get more people engaged, which is actually now back to another perfect lead-in. The same lead-in is, I think Lucy, when she came, so Lucy was our keynote speaker, and Lucy has a very, it's a really impressive sort of climbing history for somebody as young as she is, right?
Yeah.
And I think this was actually her first convention. And when I first spoke to Lucy about putting together the Ask Lucy column, her passion was to get more young people into climbing. Right? She had such an awesome experience. It shaped her life in such a way that she wanted to share that with others. And, young women specifically, but just young people generally across the board. And so if you go back and you look at her different columns, it highlights that. She's highlighted, a number of young climbers that she's been engaged with and associated with. I think it really hit home to her when she went to the convention and she saw the audience, and she was like, wow, like there aren't any young people. There are a few, but
Yeah.
the demographic is really one. Now, there's all kinds of reasons for that, and the timing of it, and all of that stuff. But the reality of it is, we need more young climbers who are excited about it, who understand, the um, the value, and parents who understand the value to their kids. I know with Rory, we've already talked about getting her right off the bat sort of
Yes.
highlighted in terms of her high pointing career.
Yeah.
But I think she realized it, and you'll see in this Apex to Zenith, she kind of highlights that, and she's really put a very sincere, genuine call to action for all of our high pointers out there to kind of help her get the message out.
Hmm.
And the best way to do that is if you've been on high pointing trips with your kids that have been fun and exciting, send in the content, send in the pictures. The more that people understand and recognize that there's a lot of people out there doing this, and that there are certain high points that are better for young families than others, the more people are going to get involved with it.
I agree. Yeah. And my daughter, who just turned 2, she has 2 high points under her belt out of the womb. When I was pregnant with her, I did a couple. And my husband and I were like, do these count? They don't. I'm just going to say it now. They don't.
That
I
was a
thought
whole
they
debate.
did.
We had a little debate with you know what? It was a picture contest. That's what it was. We
Yeah.
did an Apex to Zenith picture contest,
Hmm.
and it was something about like the youngest high pointer or something. And somebody was like, "Wait a minute, this really should be." It's like, no, we actually physically have to see.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, Rory did Indiana and Ohio. She didn't even get out of the stroller in Ohio, but she was maybe 7 months for those ones. And I am looking forward to, as we take a road trip across the country in the summer, taking her up high points, because one thing that I've learned being a mother is that kids love to collect things. And I think when she sees, and I have this map of like high points that she's done, as she gets older, when she sees, I did this one, I did this one, which one can I do next? I think that's fun for kids. And we also, on our road trips, we go to different national park sites. So they're not all parks, but some of them are national monuments, national historic parks, national military parks, things like that. And my daughter will get the junior ranger badges. And we put them on a canvas, all in a row and stuff like that. And they love to collect these things. And I know that in a couple of years, she's going to love looking back on it. And, once they grow out of that collecting badges phase, they're going to realize these are confidence building endeavors. Climbing high points, even if you don't get to the top, it's an adventure that I think children naturally seek, is something different, something that's out of the neighborhood, and you want to go on an adventure and be able to talk about it later. And another thing I've realized in doing all these episodes is like the mother-daughter, the father-daughter, father-son teams, they always say it is the best way to bond. And when I ask about what their favorite memories are, yeah, they'll name some high points, they'll name some trails, but it's always the parents that say like, there's no better way to bond with your child than to have these shared memories with them.
Right, and just think of the nature of high pointing is dedicated quality time together with a shared experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
It has all the attributes.
It does. Yeah. No phones, no screens, hopefully.
Right, right.
I mean, bring a GPS. Okay.
No, it's so true. And well, it's funny when you're talking about, I think high pointers in general, definitely kids, but high pointers in general like to sort of,
Oh, we love lists.
track the next one.
Yeah.
Like I was
Yeah.
joking, I was telling you beforehand, the picture that you have directly behind you, I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at the same exact picture right now. So
Yeah.
it's like, we've got it. Like, okay, let's sort of knock off which ones we've done.
Oh
Which ones.
yeah, I have right in front of my computer that you can't see are the national parks I've been to, and then there's a map where I can put a little like a puzzle piece of a sequoia tree into the national parks that I've been to.
Yes, yes. That is one of the things that I want to do a more extensive update on is in Apex to Zenith, and one of the upcoming issues is how do people go about tracking their successes?
Oh,
I
that's a
know
good
there's
one.
formal maps.
Hmm.
I've got a map downstairs that Tommy and I started when we first started, which is just, a little push pin and a picture, whatever picture we took,
Yeah,
high point. And I mean, now I need more room because the East Coast, there's a lot of them
there's
that
a lot of pictures.
I'm getting creative. Some are on the basement wall and so forth.
Yeah.
But I know that people have really interesting kind of creative approaches there.
That's a really, really good subject to explore. I think people are going to have some unique ideas that we've never heard of. I love that.
Yeah,
And, on the subject of younger people high pointing, I think there are more than we know. I see it on Instagram a lot, and I have been meaning to invite those people onto the show, and I'm going to be more intentional about that. But they're out there.
yes, yes. And look, I think that, and you and I talked about this early on when you were starting, because for people who don't know, you started the podcast at exactly the same time that Tommy and I started to be the editors of Apex to Zenith. It
Yeah.
was like right
Hmm.
starting point. And we talked about kind of cross information people back and forth. And I think, this would be a good one, especially as Lucy is looking to engage more younger people. She can likely give you some, good potential guests for your podcast.
For
And
sure.
I think if we just keep going back and forth that way, it'll continue to build.
For sure. And it'd be fun to, highlight some of these younger people and their adventures in A to Z too. And, one of my favorite questions that I ask on every show is like, what outdoor related books, documentaries, or podcasts can you recommend to other listeners? And people recommend these fantastic, books or whatever every time. And they're a lot of times it's like this survival story, or it's like I almost died on this trail kind of story. And I love those. We all love those.
Right.
But I think it's getting to the point now where people, let's say they had a great climb up a high point, and they think, well, I can't submit this story to Apex to Zenith because it's not a crazy adventure that that deserves to be in a magazine or something like that. And
Yeah.
I think Apex to Zenith is more about the joy of high pointing, and it's not about, but did you die?
Yeah. Yes. Thankfully, it's not.
Although if you
Although
did,
I will say
we want to
this,
hear about that too.
we do have one good. We do have one very good article about I almost died in this upcoming issue.
Oh, great.
It was really Wilder Levitt, which he is a phenomenal writer, and
Hmm.
he had this harrowing experience on Mount Bora as he
Okay.
was sort of getting toward the Chicken Out Ridge area.
Yeah.
That is just like this whole amazing, adventure story that, again, I won't get into the specifics, but you have that to look forward to. You did a really
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And for everyone else that just maybe had a run of a mill experience, if you enjoyed it, maybe write about it. And I'm saying that, and I'm thinking like maybe I should write about my high point. The last one that I did actually, it
You
was
should.
really pleasant.
Yes.
Nobody came close to death, but it was great. And like I think people would enjoy reading it. But you
Yeah.
know what else I want to see? This would be a fun topic for people to submit stories on is like, I am always interested in wildlife that people see on high points.
Definitely.
Mostly because I'm like so scared of, like a mountain lion encounter or like a grizzly bear. I just want to hear about other people's experiences.
All right. I think you just gave me a great idea for an upcoming photo contest.
Oh,
Best wildlife on a high point.
yeah, that'd be
Okay.
great. I always see pictures of people seeing bears in Kentucky or something like that. Like,
Safely taken pictures
of
of
course,
wildlife
yes.
on a high point.
Yeah.
I don't want like charging antelope or anything coming at you. Be
Yeah,
safe.
but I think, wildlife encounters or, viewings, I think that would be a really interesting topic to
Yeah.
read about. I'm always interested in it, like even if it's just a snake, I just love that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And, to your point about it doesn't need to be this, big harrowing death story. Things you've done around the high points, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
you
Hmm.
go and you went to some great restaurant, you met some awesome people at a little store, like, because so many of the high point is one part of the adventure, right?
Yes.
There's so much surrounding it. And so, telling those stories gives people ideas as to, hey, you know what? Let's go check that one out because we get to see this other cool thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I always like to when I have to drive somewhere. So for listeners who don't know, my husband and I were a military family. We move every 2 to 3 years. So next summer, we'll be moving across the country again. And I am just so absorbed in planning this road trip between high points and national park sites and other state parks and things like that. I love that kind of planning.
Yeah.
And I think it's not knowledge that we should hoard, I think, in this community. I think we
Yeah.
should get it out there. And so,
And what I
again, I
found
say all these things and I'm like, I should do that. I need to do that.
well, every time you and I talk, we come out of it with like 10 things that we're like, definitely we're doing that.
Yeah.
And we do two of them, but we've got more that we can keep doing. But you know what? To that point, I think for every person like you who's a planner and organizer, you've got another person out there who's like, just send me the stuff that you
Yeah.
put, right? Like, I'll just do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if we could just connect those dots, we'll be in good shape.
Yeah. That sounds great. So for listeners who are members of the High Pointers Club, which is how you get the issues of Apex to Zenith, you have to become a member of the High Pointers Club. And one
Yes.
of the benefits of being a member is that you get 4 issues a year, once a quarter, from Apex to Zenith. So our message to them is submit your stories, submit your photos. It doesn't have to be this harrowing story that you would read in National Geographic or something like that. If you had a great experience, if you didn't have a great experience, write about it. And there's somebody out there who wants to read it.
Right, right. And also, just I find that sometimes my wife, daughter, and I just went and saw Wicked for good.
Okay.
And great movie, did a great job. But I always think of people tend to have this perspective of like the wizard behind this dark, you know, like can't see him back there and what's going on. And I just want everybody to know when you send in your content or whatever, it comes to me. Like I get it. And so I'm telling you, send me everything. Everything that you've got is good. It's not like this big staff of people who are assessing whether or not it just comes to me and I'm like, thank you. That's great. One thing we did talk about is how to do it effectively. So 700 words is
Okay.
a good gauge. Okay. If it's a little bit more, if it's a little bit less, that's fine. But that's just a good guideline, so don't send like a 20,000 page dossier, right? It's got
Yeah.
to be manageable. If you're sending pictures, and please do send pictures because pictures really make the story, I'm going to ask a couple of things. Send just the source file. I know a lot of times people are trying to be really helpful and they embed them into a Word document, but when that happens, we have to extract them and it just makes it more difficult. And the other really helpful thing would be is name the picture, who the people are in order, right? So if there's three people, just name the picture, these three people on, whatever the high point is and whatever the state is, right?
Perfect.
And that way I know the spelling is right. I know the people are in the right order. And it just makes it a lot smoother and more accurate.
Great. That sounds good. And again, I will provide the email address and the website information, both for the Highpointers Club and how to submit potential pictures and stories.
Awesome.
So let's leave the listeners with a little cliffhanger of what they can expect on our next episode. So when you were at the convention, you did climb Whitney, and you went with 3 other people.
Yes.
And
so here's the cliffhanger I'll leave you with.
All right.
Normally, so 1 day permit, right? Normally, you probably don't hear a lot about hallucination on High Point stories. You might hear a little bit about that. You don't hear a lot about guest hikers that you end up connecting with who you never knew before, and now all of a sudden you're completely bonded with, even to the point that I sent a Thanksgiving gift to somebody I'd never met before being on Whitney. So it was just, suffice it to say, it was an amazing adventure on every level. And I know that each of, Matt and Meredith and Tommy each have their own sort of adventure within the adventure. So I think it'll be a fun podcast.
I'm really looking forward to it, and we'll have those guests on as well to talk about that. So we cannot close an episode without me asking you if you have any recommendations, outdoor book, podcast, or documentary for listeners.
Yeah, that is always, let me ask you this. I know you had a couple.
Yes, I do.
You give yours. Let me think about it for a minute, and then I'll give you mine.
Okay. So I have 3 books. 2 I'm in the middle of reading. 1 I just finished. It took me a while to finish, and I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but it's called Appalachian Odyssey by Jeffrey Ryan. And he section hiked the Appalachian Trail with a friend of his. I've had guests on that have section hiked long trails, and it's something that it's a way to hike the trails that is accessible to the majority of people. And I say that as someone who lives close to the Appalachian Trail. But
yeah.
Generally speaking, it's easier to do sections than it is to take 6 or 7 months out of your life to do these things. So reading about how Jeffrey Ryan and his friend would take long weekends or just even regular weekends to do parts of the Appalachian Trail, and they finished it after 20 some odd years. It was a great read, and it's good for reference depending on what section you're doing. That he goes into great detail. So the next book I'm reading right now is it's called That Wild Country by Mark Kenyon. It's an epic journey through the past, present, and future of America's public lands. And the public lands are just something that fascinate me, because I think as Americans, it's really something that we can take for granted. We have the largest public land trust in the world. We invented the concept of the national park. But when you go to other countries, it's like these beautiful places are privately owned. And here, like, these places are ours. So it's just something that I really love and I'm really interested in. And this book has been wonderful talking about that, how we got there. It's kind of reminds me of the Ken Burns documentary, National Parks, America's Greatest Idea. That's such a wonderful documentary. It's a history of how we started the national park system and what the lands were, and who they belonged to before they were discovered. So, and then the other one, this is kind of a local interest. It's called Discovering North Carolina's Mountains to Sea Trail.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
So it's a trail that goes from the mountains to the sea, obviously. So from Western Carolina to Eastern Carolina, mountains to the coast. And it's not yet complete. There's a lot of road hiking that you need to do through Central Carolina. And there are some parts of the trail that can be like paddled. You can paddle like from Central Carolina to the ocean, basically, if you want, or you can do other ways. But I think it is such an interesting trail, and I listen to a lot of long trail podcasts, and it's getting more popular as it becomes more developed, the trail, because I think North Carolina is it's a place that I have had to live. I never chose to live here. The Army told me to live here. And when you're told to live somewhere, you don't have a choice. You have to make the best of it.
Right.
And I got very lucky in North Carolina because it's so beautiful here. It really is. You know, I can't wait to go where we're going next, but I will miss this. You have everything in North Carolina. You have the beautiful Appalachian Mountains, you have the Outer Banks, and everything in between. You have bears, you have alligators, and everything in between.
Yeah. You're so right, though, Lauren, about, so much of it is a mindset. Like, okay, wherever you end up, now you are fortunate because North Carolina is beautiful. You'll have to do the trail for the book that you're going to have to get on that.
I know. I find myself on sections unintentionally. I'll just look over and see, oh, this is so-and-so section of the Mountains to Sea Trail. I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah, there you go. I'm doing something. Okay, so I will give you mine.
Okay.
Which is, it's a combination, and I will send you the links to them, because I think that this is probably very common when people are going to do a new and significant high point that you don't really have much experience with, is you go on to podcasts, you go on to YouTube, and you go to the library or you go to the bookstore and you get books.
Yeah.
And so before we did Whitney, I did all three of those. And it was fascinating because, the book I found that was really helpful. And I don't recall the name of it, but it's like the standard Mount Whitney book.
Okay.
And I'll send you the name and a picture of it. But it was great because I found myself continually, like beforehand, you don't have a visual. You just have a description and whatever pictures they have. And I read it so many times and looked at it so many times that I found that when I was actually there, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. That's, the picture that I looked at in the book. Same with the YouTube video. There was one specific YouTube video, which was a husband and wife who went and climbed and did a really good job of chronicling their climb in different sections. The podcast, and in fact, Tommy and I both listened to the podcast, and I remember, and I'm going to caution people about this, is, the thing I remember about it was like acclimatizing, and it was three brothers who were from the East Coast who went out, who didn't really do much from an acclimatization perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And we're listening to this thing and we're scared out of our minds because, the way they're describing it is we're envisioning our heads are going to explode once we hit 11,000 feet. And it turned out we were smart, we prepared, and we stayed 3 or 4 days before and all that. But sometimes be careful where you don't know, until you know yourself. And if you prepare yourself, don't sometimes get scared off by some of the content that you either read or see.
That's true, because you have to keep in mind that people want you to click, especially on YouTube. They want you to click on their video. Right. And so the thumbnails sometimes, they're insane.
The drama of it all, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, I almost died on this cliff. And then you click on it, it's like, no, you didn't.
No, you were fine the whole time.
You were fine, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, no, so those were good. I'll send you some of the links to that stuff, too.
Well, that's great. And look forward to having your hiking crew on from Mount Whitney and hearing all about it.
Yes, that'll be fun.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
All right. Take care.